everybody. It is 6 p.m. on a Tuesday. That means it's time for Anything Goes with Bremer and Jones. Absent the Jones tonight. No Jonesing tonight. We've got your very special guest. Well, I'll let Dawn introduce the guest. You have your very special exclusive host, Dawn Bremer.
Woo!
So, Dawn, why don't you introduce your guests this morning?
Sure, absolutely.
Actually, this evening.
This evening.
Yeah.
That's right. He's been drinking a little bit.
No.
All right, everybody. Welcome to the show. I am Dawn Bremer, and we miss Kent Jones. We hope he feels better. He's a little under the weather. So, Alice, you better be taking good care of him, and Kent better be watching. So, there we go.
Kiki's already chimed in.
Oh, hi, Kiki. Look at your wife says, say hi to your wife.
Hello, wife.
Oh, your work wife is tuning in too.
Oh, your work wife. There. Say hi to Babushka. Hi, Babushka. All right, so let's go ahead and I'm going to let each one of you introduce yourselves, what company you're from, and what do you do, and we're going to put April out first.
Oh, hi all. I'm April Coote I'm with ServPro of Gurnee, ServPro of Libertyville, Highland Park, Deerfield, lots of places. We restore properties that have been affected by floods, fires, mold, biohazards, all kinds of crazy things that we do construction as well.
Awesome.
Fantastic.
Next.
I am Derek with Gold Shield Services, heating, cooling, electric, boilers, generators, indoor air quality, and smart home integration.
All right, next.
Stephanie Conley with Steph's Bookkeeping Service. I feel like I'm on almost every show for the last week and a half. But
it's not like you're down the hallway or anything.
So we do bookkeeping, software setup for your accounting, cleanup, monthly recurring services, software integrations for time tracking and things of that sort.
Awesome. And I'm Dawn Bremer with the Bremer team of Keller Williams, North Shore West, and your host of Anything Goes with Bremer and Jones. Okay, so we threw this together last minute because, let's be honest, I'm nothing without Kent Jones. Ugh, just kidding. Anyway, I love you, Kent. Hey, Tim Santos.
Oh,
That's everybody say hi, Tim.
Hey, Tim.
Hi, Tim.
Joe.
Yes, for the win.
Special
Hey,
guest
Nicole.
appearance, Mr. Hanky.
I'm so curious if everyone knows that joke or not nowadays.
I mean,
don't know.
everybody. So we decided to talk a little bit about service industry and horror stories about it. I mean, all of us are in the service industry. So that's really important for us, right? So let's start with you. I liked your story about some, and we will not talk about names.
No name drop.
No name dropping
Not
of the
today.
companies.
Correct.
So what is your horror story or one of the bad service industry stories?
So let's talk about your previous life, and then let's talk about your current life. If you ran into like issues with bookkeeping, other worlds, because I have a bookkeeping catastrophe to talk about too.
That's not worse than the one I have.
I'm sure it's not.
All right, so let's go. Okay, tell us a story.
Okay, so my previous life, I worked for a construction company.
Hey, Fred.
And so I'll tell a different story than what I already told you because it's probably about similar.
Okay.
So we got called out on job. So it was a swimming pool that was built, and it was an in-ground swimming pool with a spa attached to it. So the client called with a complaint because their spa and their pool detached from each other. So with the
It's not
concrete, usually it's supposed to stay attached, and then you have the overflow into the spa. It's really pretty.
Yeah, you don't want to detach things like that.
No,
Right. So there's
nothing
like-
detached.
Nothing
Maybe,
attached. You want to
you
keep
know.
everything attached.
Like a 3-foot kind of hole, where the water from the spa
Especially
was
if it's
flowing
going in a
into.
hole.
Oh my
You
God.
want it to be attached.
Detached holes are
Properly.
Yeah.
detached holes are not a good
Look
thing
at our
all.
HR guys dying. It's not even like 2 minutes into the show.
So
Sorry, Pete.
we went out on job to take a look. The owner of the company came out with us, and the owner of the company, instead of addressing the issue, decided to comment on the fact that the down jets were facing upward instead of down after opening the pool. And so because of that, the proper flow wasn't happening in the pool, and they were going to get algae. And he was more mad about that than the pool separating from the spa. So that was
Gotta pay attention to that downflow.
so that was
Get a
a
fungus.
nightmare. I guess the story that I told you guys was a whole ledge of a swim out ledge fell off into the pool because it didn't have pea gravel entwined with the rebar. But this was a different company that did that. So it's like I was in the swimming pool construction arena for probably 17 years. So 15 years, something like that. So
That is so much stuff to talk about.
I mean,
in so many different ways.
like that's what
Yeah.
what do you mean, Derek? What would you
I don't
imply
know.
about holes and detached rebar and
Downflow is the thing that's stuck
downflow
in my
and
head.
all
so.
that stuff, right?
Outflow.
Outflow,
Make sure the-
downflow,
Make
all
sure
over
the
the.
jets are pointed in the right direction.
Hi,
you
Lena.
don't want the jets pointed up because then they squirt up out the pool.
She said squirt. We're so immature. We're so immature. Hi, Mary Shep.
That was a
Hi,
great
Amber
show.
Axelson. Hi, Frank Kostica. All right, Derek, what is your nightmare service industry story?
Oh man, I have so many of them. Obviously, being in the HVAC world, but my most recent one from a larger company that I got a service call on. The gentleman said he just installed a brand new furnace from a big company, and the big company installed the furnace, and the day after he installed it, there was a bang every time the furnace turned on or turned off. So they brought a technician out, and it was still happening. So they kind of diagnosed what it is. It's something wrong with the ductwork. It's about pressure and how it was installed. And so after the third technician came out to this house, the technician said, well, we just install furnaces. We don't do ductwork at all. So it's just a company that.
Isn't that kind of important
Yeah, I mean,
to
it's
have
just
the ductwork and the furnace work together?
Yeah,
I'm
it's
just saying.
called a box changer. It's just
Box
changing a box
changer.
from one to the other. So
God,
what had
these
happened?
words.
What had happened
Right?
was
You go from a squirter to
Squirts
a
from a
banger
squirter to a banger to
to
a
a box
box.
changer.
box changers. You got to watch out for those box changers.
Hi, Ted.
But
Find a company that knows their way around a box.
yeah, just exactly.
It's
We
very
we
important.
know our way around boxes.
You need to know your
Um,
boxes. Let me just say that Gold Shield knows how to get and take care of boxes.
Yep. We deal with downflows and upflows.
And squirting
vertical and horizontal. No, there's no squirting in our industry actually at all. It's
It's disappointing.
quite dry. Dry is good with our industry.
Disappointing.
Oh, hey, Wayne Jet. Thank you, Mayor Wayne Jet, for tuning in.
Oh, fantastic.
We're apologizing to you
Yeah.
on behalf
Box
of the city of
changer.
McHenry for Derek's squirting comments.
Yeah, nothing at all. That's,
All
that's
right,
true.
good.
But at the end of the day, what's
They used to call me
He's calling-
box changer.
Good job. Good job, Tim. I'm happy for you.
I'd
buddy.
like Sally to verify that, please.
Sally, I hope,
All
you're,
right,
I
so
hope you're
anyway,
watching.
Let's
At the end of
focus.
the day, it was not installed correctly, and there was not braces that were put in the correct spots in the plenum of the furnace, which it just comes back to we won that client back, and that client's never going to call that big company again for any of their HVAC or electrical needs. So
How does somebody protect themselves? So let's say somebody, it's a serious question now.
Yeah.
Let's go with that. So somebody wants to get a new furnace, and how do they know to ask those questions? So what would be some of the questions that people would ask?
I mean, there's a lot of questions around experience. There's a lot of questions around, for our company in particular, one of the biggest things that we focus on when we're coming in for any kind of estimate or quote is we do a load calculation on your house. So we actually look at the square footage of your home. We look at the window density. We use some very, modern equipment. Obviously, it's not the craziest stuff for you actual tech guys out there, but we have thermal imaging scanners that we can use
Mhm.
throughout the home to be able to check airflow in the home to make sure that the ductwork is set up correctly. I'm so sorry to reach over to you like that. She's 6 feet away from me, by the way. My arm is just 9 feet long.
Heard that before.
Whoa.
Mary says, virgin ears here. What am I listening to? We're not really sure, Mary.
Yeah,
We're
this
not
is
sure.
gone.
I heard
It's
this was
gone
called
dark.
Anything Goes.
It is
So-
Anything Goes with Bremer and Jones,
Yeah,
and this is
it's
what
true.
happens when Kent is not here.
There's no rules. Oh, wait, there's one rule. Sorry. So load calculations are our number one thing. It's something that separates us from the other guys. I handed you guys these books today. So we just invested some resources into. It's basically a book about why we're different. We put our COI in there, certificate of insurance in there. We put our licenses in there. We put a whole bunch of information of what we do and why we do it. We put a guarantee in there. When you buy a furnace from us, there's going to be a guarantee certificate that's signed by the homeowner. as well as the technician and myself, or Art, as craftsmanship, a no lemon guarantee on there as well. And we just stand behind our quality of work. Reviews are another great one. I mean, I dig into reviews so often when I hire anybody. When I'm looking at any company to work with, or a company that we're referring, if we're doing additional work or additional work that needs to be done, referrals are so important because they're personal, but there's also, it's kind of an accountability thing. So word of mouth is always the best source of marketing and the best lead source for any kind of company whatsoever, because it's personal.
That's why I think I agree with you, not to cut you off, but
Sure.
I think it's really important. If you have had any type of a service industry this year alone,
Yep.
please go back and review that company.
Yep.
That is so important. I know for me personally, my reviews are how I get my business. People search it. They want to know who's the best realtor. And I have a lot of reviews. So review your service industry. It's a great way to say thank you if you really were happy with them.
Hey, Jemima, how are you?
Hi, Jemima.
Jemima's
Hi,
with
Lisa Parrott.
Liberty Oak Plumbing, one of my favorite plumbing companies in the area. She's phenomenal. I'll give you a little plug there for you on that one too.
Yeah,
So-
well, what about everybody else? Mary Chef?
I know, Mary Chef. So I got to tell you, Mary, and I actually was going to do that. I just talked to Uncle Pete about this kind of stuff. We're sitting in some really comfortable chairs. And I got to tell you, Mary, thank you. Because these chairs feel amazing. I don't know what.
They're the amazing chairs, but minus the arms.
Whatever. I don't need arms.
You need more room for activities anyway.
Yes, and we wouldn't have been able to
More-
do the
yes.
wave if we
More
had
room
arms.
for activities.
More room for activities.
more room
How do you
for
not do
activities.
this? Shake and bake,
Activities.
baby. Shake and bake.
That's so funny.
Absolutely.
So anyway, all right, I have a great story. I have a service industry story. So last year, I had some issues with some smoke, like a smell from my light switch.
Uh-huh.
It smelled like burning something. And this was before I knew you and before I knew this other person, that a plumber. So I flipped a switch on it. It smelled like smoke. And I was like, that's really weird. Like, I'm a little nervous about my electric.
Sure.
So they called in a plumber. So, I mean, an electrician. So we called an electrician, but that would have been my problem.
I'd been nervous about that
would have been
too.
my problem. So anyway, so they called an electrician, and an electrician came out and looked at my light switch, and he said that there was nothing wrong with it. He actually thought there was something with the plumbing, that it was a plumbing. So then a plumber came out, and the plumber cut a hole underneath the light fixture, the light switch, and there was nothing there. So he says, I'm going to cut another hole. So he cut another hole and to the right, and he couldn't find anything. And when he was getting ready to cut the third hole in my wall, I was like, no, stop. What's going on? He said, I think that you have some sort of rotted pipe behind this. And I think I'm going to have to cut holes in your living room, which shares the wall to my bathroom. And I was like, can I just think about this and get back to you? So he gave me a quote. It was going to be like $1,800 plus then there's driveway repair and all this stuff. I already have 2 holes. And so I called my next door neighbor, who is not a plumber, not an electrician, just a very smart guy. And he said, I'm coming over. And he cut a very small hole in the bottom of the light fixture and found the dead mouse that was in my wall.
Oh, nice. Cool.
So it was not electric and it wasn't plumbing. And they both wanted to charge me almost like $4,000. So he cut a small hole and got rid of the mouse. And Pete Chopin from Chopin Pest Solutions came, and I don't have mice anymore. That is ridiculous.
It's,
2 holes.
It's true though. So we have this conversation with a lot of homeowners a lot about licensed electrician versus handyman. And they, I've gotten in a couple, arguments I can say on Facebook about what the difference between a licensed electrician and what a handyman is. And one of my favorite conversations is a fan. Well, a handyman can do that. Okay, so you're not incorrect on making sure a handyman can do the fan. My bigger question is, do they know the correct current code or addendums that is inside the villages? Because every village not only just has the National Electric Code, there's also addendums inside of those villages, and those addendums are from situations that have happened inside the village based on each of the homes that were built in that area.
Right.
So they're really tailored to each home. So when you're dealing with addendums, there's a lot of them, and there's a lot of technical code in there. There's different boxes.
He said boxes again.
Here we
There's
go.
different ratings for boxes for different structures. There's different structures inside of the ceilings and stuff that actually make those boxes work out. And the biggest thing I was talking about is it worth the safety of your family? And you think, oh, it's just a fan. But if you have a 2-year-old or a 1-year-old or a baby or an infant or somebody who cannot defend themselves, that has a fan that's spinning at high rotations that just dropped out of the ceiling and now has pulled all the electric out of the ceiling as well and
Right.
fallen on your child, is that handyman going to be there in any way, shape, or form or want anything to do with that? There's a lot of house fires that happen a lot.
Absolutely.
It always makes, every time I hear a house fire, there's something that's going on.
I was going to say,
Something is going
I mean,
on.
we're lucky to have April here from Surpro. So
Correct.
how many of your fires do you know are starting from electrical issues that were done by handymen?
So many. And
Oh, that's
the highlight, I guess, surrounding what you just said for me is the term licensed.
Mhm.
When you have a professional license to do a business, to perform a service, you are held to a higher standard just automatically. Don has a license as a realtor. You have a license as an electrician.
I don't
What do you for
personally,
bookkeeper?
but
What do you for bookkeepers? You have a license, girl.
I
Get you a
have
license.
a degree. I have a degree and I have a certificate
Yes,
from QuickBooks.
That's right. Yes.
But you're also, just to clarify real quick, you're not doing taxes.
So that's different.
It's
That's
a different category on that.
Correct.
Right?
Exactly.
Okay, cool.
In the past, I still have a license to sell insurance. If you're a licensed professional and you perform work at a home or a business and you do a bad job, you're at risk of losing your license. So when you hire a professional
Mhm.
and you hire someone that is not licensed, what do they have on the line? They're not going to lose their business if they do a bad job. They're not going to lose their license if they do a bad job. So it just speaks volumes when you can trust a company that's licensed. I know you might be able to save a few bucks if you use a handyman, but licensed contractor, licensed plumber, licensed electrician, our company only subcontracts out the things that we're not licensed in. So we're a licensed contractor, but we don't do plumbing, we don't do electrical, we don't do HVAC.
Right.
That's all
You
subcontracted
outsource
to
all that,
skilled
right? So when you
trades.
arrive at a fire,
Exactly.
you have vendors that are licensed contractors
Exactly.
that do your repairs.
How often, Don, do you go into a home when you're selling it and some nightmare of electrical holds up your house sale?
It's often.
Okay.
It's often. And
Or
we have a
anything, I
rule.
should say.
So it's not a rule, but most of the lawyers, the good lawyers,
Mhm.
when there comes back with stuff that say, hey, your panel isn't right or they need GFI outlets changed, their lawyers, if they're a good lawyer, will say it must be a licensed professional, because otherwise you've got every Tom, Dick, and Harry
Exactly.
who's going to go around and they're going to try to fix it. And that's not acceptable. It needs to be
Or
done.
The
I mean-
homeowner's cousin is going to do it.
Right.
Oh, no problem.
I was going to
All
say,
good.
you
No.
and I have talked a bunch of times,
Yes.
Derek, about how you have gone and you think it's very important to have an electrical evaluation on houses because a home inspector is not a licensed electrician. And you just told me a story last week or a week ago
Yeah.
about a $30,000 electric job.
Yeah, it's
So, but before you tell me that story, I just want to say also it helps to have an electrician like this. Jennifer on my team
Mhm.
was taking somebody who could barely afford a house at 125
Yep.
to go look at a house, which was a great house. Jennifer has been trained now by working with you and doing a lot of stuff on looking at the panel.
Yep.
And realized that the panel was 60
It was a 60 amp panel,
amp panel.
but it was also a fuse. It was a screw-in fuse panel, which
Right.
a lot of people. So here's the funny thing. We'll keep going because I do have
Well,
something to say. About
So I was
fuse
going to say,
panels.
so Jennifer was like, this is a great deal. And this girl wanted the house. And then she just talked to you and found out that how much could that be to upgrade it to code?
I'm sorry. Say it again.
Were you paying
Upgrade
attention
the
to me?
fuse.
No, I was reading it.
How
It's
much
very.
is it
great
I'm not
comment
great
she
at.
made.
Apparently, I'm not great at trying
Multitasking?
to. Well, no, I'm good at
No men
multitasking.
are.
No, he's a guy.
No, honey,
he
that's
has a
okay.
penis.
That's okay.
Penis is
Wow.
sometimes no, they don't.
We'll talk
no,
about that
sorry.
tomorrow.
Yeah, that'll be
It's
on
a
our show
different show.
tomorrow. Yeah.
But Jemima said here,
That's
which
what
he
I
was
was
reading, many handymen say they are licensed, which literally only means they are licensed. They are a licensed business with the Secretary of State.
Yep.
This is important to know because not only would you be a licensed business, many homeowners do not know that they are bound by the Illinois Human Rights Act, which applies to, in a great degree, human resource interaction, how you interact with people when you hire people to work on your home. If you do not hire a business which is insured, that's the big deal, especially for people that they come in and do work on your home. They're not carrying workers' comp. You actually, as the homeowner in Illinois, are responsible for that.
For that person working, Ben.
For that
In
person
the home.
working, yeah, in the home.
Yep.
So you would actually, in fact, be expected to go out and get a work comp policy for that person working in your home. A lot of people have no idea that that's a requirement. That's why it's extremely important to talk with people like you, and it's incredibly reassuring. I mean, you put your COI right in your magazine.
Yep.
That's freaking brilliant.
Yep.
And that helps people understand right away. I know they're insured. I know they're covered. And you're working with either an S Corp or an LLC,
Yep.
not, John Dingle from,
Yeah, but like
Whatever.
every
It goes like
cert
John
can
Dingle.
ask for a
They
cert.
can.
Yeah.
For
but
every person that comes to your property,
That's
like
exactly
from
what it
working
is.
construction,
they don't
if
ask.
it's over a certain dollar amount, I'll ask for the cert. If it's under a certain
Absolutely.
dollar amount, I don't particularly care. But that's just a personal preference of mine.
Yeah.
But
You
like,
ask because you know
when-
to ask.
Right.
though.
Correct.
Most homeowners don't. I was speaking with a smaller contractor that we used for subbing sometimes the other day, and we were just having a casual conversation. He's been in business for over 30 years, and I asked him how many times. I said, not businesses. I don't want to know about businesses. I want to know about homeowners. How many times have they asked you for a COI? He said, never. It's never happens. Not one time, because they
Yeah, people
don't
don't
know
know.
to ask.
Right.
And I love this. Like I did. What did I do? Earlier we were standing here and I opened this book and I was like, oh my God, this is genius.
Yeah,
This
I
COI in the book is actually really smart because
Thank
it alerts someone that may not even be thinking about using
Mhm.
you. Oh my gosh, I didn't even know that it mattered. Like I thought everyone had to have insurance.
Yep.
I've heard it all. I've done insurance for 18 years. I've heard it all. I've heard every.
So tell your panel story.
So,
Tell what
we have
happened.
two different panels here. So the one that Don's talking about with Jen giving me a call, or giving me a call and kind of going over, fuse panels are probably one of the best old school panels you could possibly use. They're literally physics based. So there's a wire inside of a fuse that screws in, and that fuse will only allow so much electricity to go through it before it breaks. So it does the same thing as what a breaker would do. The difference between the modern breaker now is that you have a spring in there that pops that spring over and you can reset it. Old days, you would take the fuse out and then replace it. The bigger concern is not just the fuse panel that I had, it's the cloth wiring that was being visible. It was the feeders coming into the panel were completely cloth wired. So there's no protection on the house. And yes, it's been there for a number of years, but Murphy's Law, when you buy that house, and especially a homeowner who's putting every bit of their money into something, Murphy's Law states anything that can go wrong will go wrong.
Yeah,
So
and-
it's gonna just backfire from the beginning.
Correct. And to tell you, you're right. It's been great like that for 70 years of the house, but
Yep.
technology has increased and now everybody
Big
has
time.
80 million things plugged into their place.
Yep.
We all have power cords and chargers and whatnot.
Sure.
And so cloth wiring can't handle what it used to in the 1920s and 30s and 40s.
Yep.
And so it's so important that you figure that out.
Sure.
And that's why, having Jennifer on my team is is an example of how great
I
we
have a
look
question.
at stuff before you
Sure.
get involved.
So I want to say one thing before you ask your question. So we offer services when you're buying a home. Okay. We can come in and literally put Gold Shield's name on the house that you're about to buy. We will actually come in, spend 6 hours in the home that you're about to purchase. It is a cost that is associated with it. But the cost that you have associated with it is the second story that I have real quick, which is I have a gentleman who bought a house in one of the surrounding towns here, and his whole entire house was cloth wired. And it was so meticulously done that the conduit ran into the box for any kind of outlets and switches, but 3 inches past the box was cloth wiring. So somebody went through the house and literally switched out all of these boxes to pass a normal inspection. So our electrician came out and was doing a quote for a panel replacement because he knew he had to do a panel replacement. There were some indicators in there that just didn't seem right for what would match up for a licensed electrician to do. And I don't discuss those things. I let the electrician do that in your house because that's an electrician conversation, not a generalization conversation, because every home is different. At the end of the day, the entire house had to be rewired.
Mhm.
The gentleman had to pay for it out of pocket. He's doing sections of his house. It's extremely stressful for the electrician to plan out an entire house. It's $35,000 or somewhere in there for a whole house rewire. And every piece of it, conduit needs to be added. All the panel box needs to be updated. The service lines coming in, feeder. Everything. Can you imagine buying a home and you've invested so much money down payment, and now all of a sudden you got another $30,000 bill? It's not good for us either. It stinks because we just want to not do that. We want it to be a part of that as
Right.
well. So what were you going to ask? Sorry.
So I have a question. So it could be for either you or April.
Sure.
So it's not really a horror story. I had a situation at my house where a sewer pipe kind of whatever split,
Mhm.
but thankfully nothing backed up into our house. It was just a little like odor. So that was fine.
So you needed your pipes cleaned.
So they, so we got quotes.
Some new
He's
pipe
rolling
laid.
his eyes over
He
there.
needs to get some new pipe laid.
Yeah.
The service industry is fun to make bad jokes about.
All the jokes.
So we got quotes from different companies.
Mhm.
And while we got quotes from people that were insured, licensed, and all that. But so my question is that how do you feel about, so a newer company didn't have a backhoe to do the digging in our yard, to expose the pipe, to replace it. They were going to hand dig it at $6,000. But to hire a different company that had a backhoe
Mhm.
that wasn't necessarily bigger or older, they're about the same age in business, they were going to charge me $3,000. So how do you feel about people like homeowners or people, like, how do you feel about charging for the fact that even though you're licensed, you're insured, you're everything, but you just are so new that you don't have the equipment to do all of these jobs? Do you feel it would be better for everybody all around to wait until you can afford to purchase the equipment? Or, I mean, your prices really can't be competitive when you're talking about 50%. So
Very
like,
true.
how do you kind of feel about that? Like, as you guys have grown in Gold Shield, you guys do construction, like.
So just the first off, I mean, when you have a differentiate, we run into this sometimes where you have like a really big difference in quotes. Okay. And I mean, especially with 50% difference, we do a lot of trenching from here and there. We do a lot of, you guys good over there?
Somebody just messaged me and said you can't see that poor girl's head above the leaves.
I was like, right?
I was going to
Like,
comment
I
much
thought we were,
earlier
like,
on that you put the
fondling each other
shortest
under the
person
table
behind
there.
the
I don't know what's
shrubbery.
going on.
I know, I feel like a giant
seating.
sitting next to
Yes,
everyone
I
else.
am the
But-
shortest person
You
at
put
the
the
You two
table.
should
shortest
switch
person
seats.
I'm behind the
behind the
Switch seats,
shrubbery.
'cause now we're not social distancing.
Well, no, my seat's
Yeah.
nice and warm.
All
I
right.
right. Sit there. Can you get the infrared scanner? I want to show how warm my seat is.
Absolutely.
I'm just
There you
kidding.
go. Like, we were using this for some untoward purposes earlier. Me
Yeah, it
and
was
Steph
not
and
here.
Don.
Oh, that's
Derek was not
fantastic.
involved. Just
Yep.
want to put that out
Yep,
there.
I was not involved in this
Just,
conversation at all.
Yeah.
Nor
One
was
time.
Pete.
There we go.
Hey, everybody.
Pete, just stand there for Pete. You only have 32 minutes to do this.
Yeah. How long do you
This is
think
like-
your arms
How
would be
long can he
holding?
stand and do
Like
this?
Pretty good.
Blair Witch
This is
Project
new.
stuff
This is
right
great.
now.
How sick is everyone online right now? Is like,
Oh, I know, likey.
People are logging off. Stop it.
Oh my
Oh,
Just-
Lisa
just-
Lisa says switch
You're
Steph and Derek.
dropping
I'm
like
trying.
flies.
Lisa, I'm trying, but
Why?
Derek is
Okay.
complaining of
All
a
right.
cold ass.
Yeah, it's not cold. It's warm.
Switch
You wanna
places.
switch?
No.
Okay, I can't
Get
believe we're
up.
doing this live on the show as we're playing musical chairs.
Anything goes with
Yeah,
Bremer
that's
and
very
Bremer.
true. It is warm.
The action portion
Oh, I
of
would
the
assume
show.
So I have
see
a
his heart
comment.
also.
I have a comment on the price difference.
Yes.
Yeah, we got to get back to
actually.
task here. See what happens when Ken's not here?
See, I'll try. We're bringing it in.
I'm gonna say it's about the same.
Are we
Bring it
reining it in?
We're
Is this
bringing it
better?
in.
Is this better for the
Everyone
the viewers?
can see you now.
Thanks,
Now I
Tracy.
can't see any of the comments because of the
The
tree.
tree, the
That's
fern,
all right.
the
But you can
fake
see my
fern,
pretty face now.
Focus.
the Christmas fern. Oh, I was just going to comment on the price differences. I see that all the time.
Mhm.
We actually here's a real time example. We went on a walkthrough today for a job we bid about 5 months ago for a government entity. It was for a government owned property full of mold. Okay, fine, right? We bid it 4 or 5 months ago. We were about $7,000-8,000 higher than the bid that they accepted. Well, the company, no names today, but a very huge name company, ghosted them. Well, what that tells me immediately is someone bid it wrong.
Yep.
They don't want to do that job because they're about to lose money. Because when we bid it, I was speaking with the PM that bid it, and he was like, yeah, I was kind of cringing as I hit send on the email because I knew I was a little low, but I want us to get the work, which is kind of how we operate. You have to operate on that level of, we really want to get the work, but we need to make some money, and where can we kind of land? That's every single service business
Right.
out there
So-
works that way. But sometimes if the bid is super low, it's either a mistake or you're not getting the same thing. With your particular circumstance, they cannot do that labor for the same price. You can do it with equipment, but I don't understand why they wouldn't just rent equipment. That makes
And that's
no
like
sense
the
to me.
first thing I was
Like,
wondering. is
what are
renting
they
equipment.
doing?
Yeah. So any equipment that
We'll
I
rent anything
don't
we need.
physically own, I just rent it.
Absolutely.
Well, I told him I could bring a back, because at the time I worked in
You could
construction.
ask Kent
Wait.
Jones. He
so I
likes
had
to
a
do
backhoe.
rent
So I was like, I
backhoes.
could bring a backhoe
Right.
to my house.
I heard that story.
Well,
Kent,
Yeah.
do you think you can help her out?
Yeah.
Anything.
Is Kent listening?
No,
I
He
don't
doesn't-
think so.
he
I think
doesn't
he's
listen
just-
to the show when
weather.
he's not on it.
The other big thing that comes down to pricing
Good
too
to
is
know.
how busy you are. So if a
Absolutely,
company
yeah.
is really busy, you typically have a higher quote
Yep.
because you're supply and demand at that
Absolutely.
point. And not with us, because we just tell our customers like, hey, we're backed up. Here's what we have. We put our emergencies always first. So if you have a no heat, and that's always first. And we actually break down our no heats to even age groups. So if you have an elderly person, we're going to service that elderly person that has no heat
Sure.
versus the young couple
Absolutely.
that can bundle up a little bit better. That's not going to have, the immune issues with that kind of stuff.
Or
Better
even
on
like
blood
a
thinners.
commercial
That's true.
multi-unit versus an individual.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Yep. So and it's same thing, single family homes versus, when you have a
Like a
commercial unit that
30
has,
plus unit.
yeah, you still have heat
Right.
from the building that's still generating it on there as well. So all those conversations and factors come into that. The other side of it too is when you have a company versus, so you can have a company that has their own facility, that has resources like what we have for what we do. We offer health insurance to our team. We have fully stocked trucks. Every single one of our trucks has an entire inventory built into it, and we constantly replenish that. The reason we do that is when you call us at 3:00 in the morning, my tech can figure out some way, shape, or form to get you through to the morning so that we can get whatever correct parts we need and be able to use universal parts to make it work, or actually just fix it on the spot. So when you have that other company, they're now paying to go back and forth with different things, and they're just wasting time and energy. It takes capital to carry those kind of trucks.
Right.
It also means that truck is not going to break down on the way to your house, or you're not going to get ghosted. I just spent a couple days ago messaging a client who has a furnace that's 7 years old. Their heat exchanger was cracked, and he had posted on Facebook like, hey, I just need some help. It's a manufacturer that we typically don't deal with, but we are a vendor of theirs. So I reached out to them, and the warranty was covering the heat exchanger, which is great, but the guy who installed it ghosted him. And then it was back and forth and excuse after excuse. So Thursday, he's giving him one more chance. On Thursday, I've already called the manufacturer. I already have the part on hold for me so that it's ready to go. So when that guy ghosts him, he's going to call me Thursday. I have a tech already ready to go. I actually have him on the schedule, and he doesn't even know it, because on Thursday, done. You call me, I'll be out there same day.
And if he doesn't, and that guy shows up, you have the part ready for the next guy.
Exactly.
I just think it's interesting. Like, can we talk about the ghosting?
Yeah.
I don't understand this concept.
Yeah, me
So,
too.
with my job, I need a lot of vendors.
Mhm.
You guys know that I'm queen of giving those out to people who I trust and believe in. But my question I don't understand is, why do people ghost? What is the purpose of that? Like, that's what I don't understand. Why would you ghost? One bad person, one
Mhm.
person that you ghost gives you a bad review. The 15 people that you did correctly that really liked your service don't really give reviews as much.
Agreed.
But the first time you do that, you get a bad review. Now, why would you do that?
So
I think
here's a
the
good.
the
let's talk about
majority is
price.
non-malicious, though. I believe in my heart that the majority of service people
Mhm.
that do the ghosting, it's not a malicious thing. They're in over their heads,
Yes.
and they have too much work, and they don't understand necessarily the big picture. Maybe it's their staff that's doing the ghosting and not necessarily the owner. There's a few moving parts with that, but I think the majority really is they're overwhelmed and they don't have enough staffing. And then on the back end, like we were talking about before, someone maybe misquoted the price. They're like, "Oh, hands off! I don't want to do
talk to you
it. Not
anymore."
it."
I mean,
I
is it
am not
possible?
available.
PM just got his butt kicked real hard for underbidding it, but then they're also going to be like, "Yeah, don't call them back."
I was going to say, is it possible that your tech that represents you, so you're not the owner of the company, goes out and says, well, I can do that $35,000 job for 12
Mhm.
because they don't know they misquoted.
Mhm.
And then you go back to the owner of the company and they're like, what are you talking about? It's a $30,000 job just for walking in the door. So that happens a lot.
We
So
talked about it earlier.
I for me, it's happened before, right?
Yeah.
So we have misquoted something. We have underbid a job, and now I'm looking at the back end of it on the monetary side of things and going, yep, this is going to be a terrible move for our company. I also then pay attention to the client. I'm going to do the work. I'm going to have that difficult conversation. I'm not going to cut costs. I'm not going to change what I need to do. I'm just going to take my loss. And it's one of two things. One, it's a learning experience for my technician because, hey, we need to have a better conversation about that. Number two, the systems and processes that we have in place already stop that from happening because every quote that goes through our company has to go through some shape or form me or Art. And Art and I are on the same page with pricing structures in general. So the back end of that, what ends up happening sometimes, and we're not the type of company to, if something happens, unless it's completely major, where we pull a wall out and this is entire cloth wall, then we're going to have like a difficult conversation with the client, say, hey, this price quote's going to change because this is completely unforeseen circumstances. We don't adjust our quotes. Our quote that we give you is literally our quote that you're going to be done. Hey.
Wait, I have to interrupt you. Christopher Gibson says, "What is ghosting?"
Oh,
Where you call a company and you call a company, or it happens, I guess, in dating too. But you have somebody come out to your property and give you a quote, and then when you want to accept the quote, you could say, yes, I want to move forward with this contract, and then you never get a phone call back or acknowledgement of that, and then you're just sitting there waiting for days on end for somebody to call you back. Or
Correct.
you can, worst case scenario, you give a deposit and then they
It happens a
don't
lot.
I've seen that
show
happen
that.
Or
So,
people, you
times.
give a deposit, a contractor comes out,
Yep.
Chris, they're going to build your deck. They take your deck apart. They take your 50% and then they never come back.
I mean, like for us, I put a clause in my contract where I'll do a review after 30 to 60 days, and I have the right to then increase or decrease the price based upon the work. So like if someone calls me and they're like, I have this many transactions a month, I have this many bank accounts, this many credit cards, blah, 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 blah. Okay, I'm going to blind quote you on what you're saying. This is my ballpark of the quote. And then once I dive in there, get in there, like, okay, well, really, you're kind of doing this more so than this. And then I have the option at that time to either increase or decrease. I have had a couple situations where I have decreased price after a couple months because either the company had downsized from the previous year, so they weren't doing that same volume as they were the next year, or I've had to go back and do the increase. But that usually the increase is pretty rare. But we do have that clause in our contract to reserve that right.
Interesting. Art Bragg says, Dawn, tell us about ghost in real estate. And that is another show.
That's a whole show. I'm
We're
sure.
just talking about a house that we had that was haunted.
Oh.
That multiple agents had
We
experience
can
in the
just put the
ghost.
camera in there
Oh
and
my
see what
God.
happens.
Seriously.
Bring
That's right. The
thing.
infrared thing.
No, the infrared thing is not a
not for
ghost
ghosts.
chaser.
It's
Right.
No, the camera just
Temperature.
catches. Yeah, that's like temperature.
Yeah,
Maybe
because it's
ghost.
gonna be blue then. If it's supposed to be like yellow, it's gonna be blue if there's a ghost.
It's,
Haven't you watched those ghost chaser shows?
No, I don't.
Okay, wait. Victoria
I
Kempster
guess.
says, landscaping or tree guys, the graves come alive.
No.
Oh,
Yeah.
no.
Scary.
Oh,
Hey,
no.
and
Only when they
also-
mess something up.
Yeah.
They get them on the phone.
What about, so like for me, I'm not a price person. Like, I mean,
So
it
talk
sounds
about
bad.
more of that. What does
Like,
that mean? What do you mean
I don't
not a
care about the price.
price? So what do you care about?
So like if I am going to write a check for something, if it's a scope of work that I don't want to do personally,
Sure.
I don't have a problem writing a check for it.
So value is your goal.
So I'll look at contracts. I'll compare apples to apples, apples to oranges. I'll review it all. I probably look at it with a different eye because one, I'm a bookkeeper, and two, I've been in the construction world.
Sure.
But I have been willing and have paid the higher price because the person, whether it be the owner or the salesperson that came to my home, I really liked them and I felt a good connection with them. I got a good vibe with them and we were compatible to work together. So I didn't have a problem paying that price.
Mhm.
I don't always go for the cheapest price or the highest price or the medium price. So if I'm comparing three quotes, I don't really care what the dollar value is. if it's apples to apples, I'm going to pick whoever was the most genuine and I felt the best vibe with in my house.
Yeah. So when you're installing any kind of HVAC equipment, it's not about price. It's not about it's partially about the equipment, and there's a very detailed conversation of the company that we use and why we use it. But again, that's going to be an in-home conversation because I'm not going to talk about brands here because it's just not the way to do things. But the value of what you do, we are not the cheapest company out there at all, but we're also not the most expensive company. We're the best value for what you do. I know my team because I work every single day. Art has trained these guys from the get-go. These are 12 and a half years experience. We have a boiler guy that's got 25 years experience. It's done the right way.
I'm going to interrupt you. I want to say something about your company because I think it's really incredible. Since I refer you a lot of business and I have houses that are all different ages, I think it's spectacular when you have an electrician company that has specialists in boilers and water heater, like all, I mean, you know what I mean? All the things that you have,
Yes.
all of those different things that you have, that's a huge difference than one company having one focus and not being able to do all the different options that you
So
have.
you're talking about like jack of all trades kind of conversation. So we have a boiler expert, we have a duct specialist, we have a panel specialist, we have a code specialist. Each part of our business has an expert involved in it. And my expertise is obviously the smart home integration. I test a whole bunch of stuff. Do I understand electrical code? Do I understand how the electrical conversation happens? Yes. Can I do what my female electrician can do? Absolutely not. She is one of our top code enforcers. She literally, when you have her walk in and you see the estimate that she produces, number one, insurance companies absolutely never question anything because she's already got code in there. She already has the addendums for the village that's in there. And I literally, all I have to do is submit that to a permit request. Permit gets approved literally right away. We get comments from the villages every single time we pull a permit for everything that we do. And when you go and have an inspector show up, they do two things. They look at the quote and say, holy cow, that's a lot of information. And thank you, because I don't have to go through and read my own addendums, because a lot of times inspectors, they'll bring the code book with them because one inspector's doing a lot of different jobs, and that's just per village. So you're taking all the guesswork out of it. If you spent that much time going through all that guesswork, then you're literally going to know that this job was done correctly. So they check the major components, and after that, it's a 2-second conversation. I have literally sent her out to do inspections, and the inspector's like, oh, we came 20 minutes early, and guess what? You don't need to come. You're passed. Here's your pass. We emailed it to you. You're good to go. You know, it's such
awesome.
An easy conversation.
So what about on the flip side? So we talk about like service companies and being licensed and bonded and all that.
Sure.
I've been in situations where the homeowner decided they wanted to be the GC on the job. And so
my favorite.
they called the village and harassed them to the extent that while we were building a pool, the village inspector came out and literally took a magnifying glass to all of our rebar ties for a whole 20 by 40 pool, which you could just imagine how many ties that is.
Yep.
And we failed because one rebar tie was 1.5 twists short of where it needed to be out of all the other ties. So what are your thoughts on that when the homeowners try and kind of get involved and overstep like your expertise? Because I deal with it sometimes with business owners thinking like, you know, like that they, I guess, are more, I don't know how to phrase it. I guess they're just more educated in the coding of transactions, or they try.
Is that similar to when a homeowner thinks that they know the price of a house to list as
I think
opposed
that's
to me?
very-
Is that what
there
you're
you go.
trying to
Very
say?
accurate.
I don't know what
So,
that's like.
you know, we could all kind of relate in all of our different
Absolutely.
industries.
Yeah.
So on the flip side of things, so take the whole equation. Let's say you got a great guy or girl or whatever that you hired and a company, and the homeowner thinks that they know more than you, and then they cause problems and delays on the job. How do you approach that? Because
So
that is a real life thing.
I'm just going to speak for
Absolutely.
ourselves and what we do. We set the expectations with our clients just as much as our clients set the expectations for us. So there's certain things that we're experts at. We have the license, you know, and you might be an electrical engineer because we come across a lot of those. And some of these electrical engineers are amazing. They're really good. And they could be an electrician someday if they wanted to be that person. But on the flip side of it too, you're hiring us to do the job. So I have this conversation a lot, and I know you've heard me say it before, and I know you've heard me say it before. There's our clients, and then there's not our clients. Okay. And what you just said earlier is exactly what the home ownership conversation between contractor or anything should happen. You need to mesh with that person. It's about not only just the craftsmanship of the work, but it's also the personality. And there's different personalities for different things. I send, based on the conversations that I listen to on the phone, I send certain technicians to those people's homes. So I have people that work for me that have really short and to the point, and they're just dry, and that's it. I'll send them to that short, dry person that doesn't want the fluffy, sassy, like, oh, here's everything great. You're just going to walk in, give the facts, features and benefits, and everything's good. Then you have the other side, which is like, hey, I really want to be educated on the service that you provide. I will send somebody else who's a little more talkative, that can give the brochures, that can go through all this stuff. You want to talk about structure. We have so much information to give you, but I can't give it all to you at once because it's going to be information overload and you're not going to do that. So to answer your question, I think it's a mesh between having a real conversation.
Yeah.
And if that person's hindering your expertise as a client, then that conversation needs to happen.
Absolutely.
Where, you can be upfront and honest about it.
Victoria says, how do you deal with the owners who are out to get a deal?
Mm-hmm. Happens every day. I mean, I'm
They
assuming
might
you
not
you
be
do that.
your customer.
Yep.
Correct.
Exactly.
And that
It's
is the
okay to
best
say
business
no.
lesson I have learned in my entire life is not everyone is your customer.
Right.
And that's okay. We recently turned down a large construction job because it was a fire, and we do fire cleaning, we do structure cleaning, we do contents cleaning, we do reconstruction, we do all these things, right? And I always laugh because my boss, the owner of the company, always like jokes around and calls it like dating versus getting married. And when you're doing like cleaning and
Thanks, Frank.
right, when you're doing cleaning,
I like
etc., it's like dating. But if you do the reconstruction, you're married for like a year. Like this is a minimum year, maybe not a whole year. It just depends on the project. And we declined. The guy said, "Yeah, I want a quote on doing the reconstruction, but the cleaning part, it was very high maintenance, and it." You can have all of the conversations in the world, but if that relationship doesn't get built and you don't have that mesh that you need, you are not going to have a fun time.
I love that so much.
Yeah, I like that.
Like, I love that thought process so much because it's really true. Even in my job, there are houses that I know that are going to be a long-term process. And that's a great thing. Do I want to be married to this client
Is this
for a
going to be a
while?
fling?
I mean,
Like,
that's
you give a fling with
fantastic.
a lot of people.
I don't need another divorce in my life.
We're not in it for one job. We're not in it to
Right.
change your box.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Oh, there he is with the damn box again.
No.
Stuck on the box.
Seriously,
Sorry,
you've been stuck
honey.
on that box for a long time. Kiki.
Yeah. Man, I do love my wife. She's amazing. So it is. I love that saying. It's 100% true. I can speak on behalf of him because obviously we have the same core values when it comes to stuff. We're not in this for one thing. We're in this for when you call us. And here's when I really know that we've connected with the client and my team has done a good job, because obviously I can't talk to every single client that calls in. And it makes me upset, but I know who they are. And it's so nice when I get a phone call after 6 o'clock, because usually the phones are on me at night, so I can let my team rest from the day that they've had. And I'll get a phone call and our system will tell us who it is. I already know your situation because I've already been involved in it in the back end. So, hey, my name is Mrs. Jones. Rob came out for an estimate for my furnace. Oh yeah, Mrs. Jones. Yep. You have a 2-stage, variable furnace in 96% of that we're quoting you. Wow. You know who I am. Well, yeah, absolutely. You live in Cary or you live in Crystal or whatever town you live in. How can I help you? What questions can I answer for you? The customer experience then gets pushed up a level, right? Number one. Number two, when I get phone calls from that client that ask me for referrals, then my community structure comes in, which is my favorite part. So maybe we don't offer, because we don't offer roofing services or plumbing services right now. Hint, hint. I'm just kidding.
He's not just kidding, just so you know. He's
Someday.
not.
But we have plumbers that we literally work with. We have roofers that we work with, and people that I can put the company name behind and trust. Do you know what I mean? And that's the bigger part of the community structure and the direct referrals that we talk about. You're not going to get any better than that. If you trust a service company to give you a referral that's going to give you the best experience, I can speak of so many times that we've worked with certain companies, and every one of our companies got a 5-star review from that client. And it was like seamless interaction between the 3 companies because we all talk to each other all the time.
Right.
So that's really important as well. So
since we all kind of refer businesses and each other and this and that, and we all send work out, how do you guys handle when one of your referrals doesn't do the same job that you expected them to do? Like, how do you handle that with your client that you have reoccurring work with and reoccurring, potential business, or they even have referred you to their friends and family?
I can handle that one because let's just be honest, because I list the house, but I need a flooring person, I need a plumber person, I need an electrician, I need a roofer, I need a house cleaner, I need a carpet cleaner. That's usually the 6 major things that I need. My problem that I have is making sure that my referral sources, let's talk about whether they're in my networking group or not, if they don't give the same level of service and customer service that I have, I can't use them because there have been incidences where I have utilized and given somebody, and it's my reputation. My reputation is I'm a 5-star agent. At every group so far, every company I am at, I'm almost a perfect score. And that's because we take it very seriously about making sure we connect those people. And just like you said, I may have 3 electricians, and if I know this person is somebody who needs a fluffy, and let's say you didn't have somebody like that, I couldn't use you for that. Or if I needed somebody who needs to be, you have to be on time. If you say you're going to be there at 9:00, I know certain servicers who do great service, but may come at 9:15. That's going to irritate that person. So it's all about building relationships with your contractors and knowing what your expectations are. And my expectations are always set when I give out a referral. My referral is this: I tell you who the client is, I tell you what their expectations are, I tell you what they are looking for and what their personality is. And my hope is that who I give that servicer to, they will do that, because I've had incidences where the painter hasn't shown up, or the painter has come out and not given a quote for 6 days.
I think she has a problem with the painter.
I know, I'm just giving an example of a painter.
The construction industry in general is, unfortunately, kind of has that reputation of being like they're in high demand, so they kind of think they can do whatever they want sometimes.
Yeah.
Who's that?
So I think the construction industry in general.
Yeah, they say I'm booked 3 months out. I'm booked 3 months out. I'm booked 2 months out.
And that may be true, but when you call and you say, hey, I need this, I need it now, they either can say yes or no. And if they say yes, they better make it happen.
Wait, I have a comment from my client. I have a client who's paying attention right now, and she says,
hi, client.
This is Victoria.
Hi, Victoria.
She was a buy and a sell, and she said, shout out to Dawn's networking, but she never got any fluffing.
Oh.
Victoria,
well,
they will fluff you.
Y'all didn't need Surf Pro yet, but call me. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding.
Not a professional fluffer, by the way.
And what kind of fluffing are we talking about, Victoria? So
she wasn't serviced. Well,
she wasn't serviced well by you. But that's no, I'm just kidding. That's not the kind of service you give.
No, it's not.
But anyway, so that's true.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm so embarrassed right now.
You're so red.
She's turned the shade red. Did you see that?
I am. It's because embarrassing. Apologize. Now she left.
Oh.
Vicky left.
Oh,
Sorry,
no.
Victoria, come back.
Back.
He'll fluff you. He'll fluff you.
Clearly, this is going to become a group effort.
Actually, let's just say that the guy who's not here will fluff you. Kent will be over and fluff you.
Next week. When he feels better.
Oh, she's back. She's back.
Oh,
okay.
okay.
Kent's coming next week.
Welcome.
No
Welcome,
pun intended.
Victoria.
Shut up.
Well, I just wanted to kind of, throughout the course of the show, I just wanted to kind of point out, not only do people in the service-based industries need to do what's appropriate to protect and differentiate themselves with their licensing or skill set or whatever they bring to the table, but the homeowners, I feel, or even business owners in my case, are equally as responsible for vetting those individuals and protecting themselves and knowing what their options are and how to protect themselves. And I mean, even though like we're a bookkeeping company, but we have insurance. We have E&O insurance. All of our clients are protected when we are handling their books and handling their, financials, because that's such an intimate process. And
Hey, by the way, how's your Ferrari out front? Is that good?
It's good.
Okay, good.
Which one? She's got a couple of them.
Darn bookkeeper. Can I just say something?
My
real quick
driver
about
should
that?
be here soon. So.
In a Rolls Royce. So in at the same time, I just want to comment real quick on this too. Companies make mistakes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Have you missed an estimate ever?
Absolutely.
Okay. Have you not called someone back by accident?
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
You got to give, especially during these times, right? And I talk about pandemic times where companies are really trying to restrict expenditures, okay, and employees and trying to make things efficient. Give a break every now and then, okay? So what I mean by that is if someone doesn't send you an estimate, why don't you call the company and just say, hey, before you do that review, just ask them, hey, do you have my estimate? If they don't provide that estimate or they miss it a second time, then yeah, you can go ahead and review it and say what it is. But there's a lot of times that we've come across where I'll get an email, and I shouldn't say a lot of times because it doesn't actually happen a lot because we have systems in place for this. But I can speak of one client that we didn't get an estimate to because they said that they weren't in a rush for it. Okay. And that client immediately put us on Google as, no communication, nothing else like that. Now, mind you, I've called this client already and resolved it and explained and apologized that we didn't, and I should have, put that on my end too. And he's actually purchasing his furnace through us, which is great. He's a very nice man, and I have nothing bad to say about him other than the fact that I wish instead of just automatically throwing the review out there, to just give us a call. We answer our phones every day to the point where we have systems in place when you call us and our full-time dispatcher who's answering the phones all day is busy. That now goes to a second person in line. That second person that's busy goes to a third person, then to me, and then to Art. So there's 5 people that's phones are going to ring before you go to voicemail. Now, if all 5 of us are busy, which does happen every now and then, leave a message.
Or they're at a bar drinking.
Or at a bar drinking, depending on what day of the week it
Speaking
is.
of reviews, I have the best review story. So
Okay, you have about 1.5 minutes to
had-
tell it.
no.
Oh my gosh.
So when I worked at the pool company, we had a client that gave us a really bad review. And they said that we overcharged them for the service, but their pool had been closed for 2 years. We opened it up, whatever, there was broken pipes. So it cost more than we anticipated for them to have it open for the 3 weeks. And so then they gave a really scathing review. Then a year or so later, they called to get their pool opened again. And I was no longer working for that pool company, but the owner called me and was like, hey, does this name sound familiar to you? And I'm like, yeah, that's the guy that gave you guys a really bad Google review or whatever. So the owner was like, hey, can you retract? We'll come and open your pool. Can you retract this review or whatever, or edit it? He's like, no, I stand by my review and whatever.
But he was still calling him back to ask
But he
him
couldn't-
the stuff.
But it was like May, so you're not going to get any reputable pool company to come out and open your pool if you didn't schedule by March.
I think reviews are fine. If that's your opinion, that's your opinion.
It's just,
There's
you
good
know,
and bad
like,
people with that.
yeah,
kind
but
of
he
stuff.
wasn't
So-
willing to retract it. And he's like, no, I stand by it, but I need you to come out tomorrow to open my pool.
That's hilarious.
Like, what?
All right.
Probably
So
not.
on my show, we have 2 minutes left. So I'm going to go ahead and ask each one of you quickly, 30 seconds. How does somebody reach you and what can they do to help you?
Oh, well, you can
She was not
can
there.
reach me.
This is
Google
a loaded
Serpro of
question.
Gurney. I don't know. I'm April Coot. I'm really easy to find. Koot. Who has that last name? Yeah,
And how do they reach you? What's your phone number?
My phone number is 847-404-0434. If you have a property emergency, call me. If we don't do it, I know who does. I hope you don't have an emergency, but if call me anyway. We'll have lunch or something. I don't know, man. Like, I love people.
Stop. How do people reach you and what's your company?
They could call Steph's bookkeeping service. We need pizza. Zoom in. We have cups. 847-942-3004. Or just catch me on any show on 21.6 The Net. I will be here.
All right,
to answer
Derek.
your question.
Gold Shield Services, 847-376-8094, www.goldshieldtoday, not tomorrow, goldshieldtoday.com.
And of course, I'm Dawn Bremer, your host of Anything Goes with Bremer and Jones. And you can reach me at 847-456-6334. Thank you guys for coming. Hopefully it was a great show. You guys got a lot of information. See you next Tuesday. I do. I say it every time.
Really? See you next Tuesday.